As culture has become one of the critical sources that represents the nation's image, we've seen a fierce competition in the field of tourism and export of contents among different cultures. Korea has also become one of the top soft power countries with a Korean wave. Along with the designation of 2016 to 18 Visit Korea year, soaring number of foreign visitors are expected to come to Korea. On this week's Upfront, we discuss the further challenges for Korea when it comes to the nation's development as the world's top soft power country.
Nation brand reflects a country's competitiveness amid the rising competition among countries around the world. Aside from exports or global reputation, which show a country's economic power, cultural contents like cultural heritage or tourism have also emerged as one of the influential factors. And this concept is so-called soft power. We've seen a fierce competition in the field of tourism and exports of contents, which are all based on culture. Korea has been well recognized as one of the soft power countries in the global society. Korea's soft power has laid its firm foundation based on its traditional culture. Aside from traditional food, clothing, and shelter, which can show the uniqueness of Korean culture, the country's traditional culture covers various contents like taekwondo, which is Korean martial art, Korean dance, talchum, and samulnori, a genre of percussion music which foreign tourists can participate and enjoy together. Korea's pop culture, including dramas and K-pop, has also gained a lot of popularity. Aside from the accepting of Korea's pop culture, increasing number of foreigners have become more favorable toward Korean people and the country itself. There have been increasing number of foreigners who want to learn Korean language or buy Korean products. Increase in exports of Korean cultural products and rising popularity of tourist products have brought about a great economic impact as well. Such a great growth in Korea's soft power has contributed greatly to improving the nation's image, as well as strengthening the national competitiveness. There have been continuous efforts to strengthen the soft power of the country. The government has spearheaded efforts to attract more foreign visitors to Korea. And it has also opened a Korean Food Information Center K-Style Hub and has offered various kinds of cultural experiences. These kind of government strategies are to improve and promote the nation brand to the world.
문화가 산업 활성화의 돌파구가 되고 산업의 문화를 접목해서 경제의 외연을 확대하는 선순환 구조를 구축해야 합니다.
Amid the rising significance of nation branding, Upfront discusses the remaining challenges when it comes to making a new leap forward as a soft power country.
For today's discussion, we've invited experts in global culture today in the studio. First, we're joined by Oh In-gyu, Director of Center for Hallyu Studies at Research Institute of Korean Studies at Korea University.
Nice to meet you.
We have Virginie Vial, Research Fellow at Lyons Institute of East Asian Studies, who has studied global culture in France. And also by Mary Ainslie, Head of Film and Television Programs at the University of Nottingham Malaysia campus.
Hello.
Welcome all to join this discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, let's first talk about the national brands, the concept of national brands. Professor Oh, national brands indicates both tangible and intangible aspect, including awareness, preference, and credibility of a country. What kind of impact do you think it has on, let's say, national competitiveness?
Well, in the past, we usually thought that a nation's image or national brand depends heavily on economic, political, and military aspect of what we call hard power or soft power dimensions. But what happened over the years is that, especially after the fall of the Soviet regime and the end of the Cold War, the countries were more or less concerned about how they could promote the cultural or what they call soft image of the nation instead of the so-called hard power image of the nation. Now, the reason is because number one, it's much more cheaper to promote these soft power than maintaining hard power stance of what they call diplomatic policies or foreign policies. And number two, people have sort of not a top-down, but what we call bottom-up or voluntary grassroots level of love affair with a country of their choice. So instead of coercive nature of hard power or military, political, or economic power of a nation, national brand that depends heavily on soft power of diplomatic policies of a country invites voluntary attraction from other countries about your own nation. So it's cheaper, it's much more peaceful, it looks much better. It's a culture-loving aspect of international relations, which many people think, contribute to world peace more than maintaining world peace by arms or political means.
It's a soft power, but nonetheless a power. But it is soft by definition. Dr. Vial, how can we make a kind of a tangible measurement out of this? Is there any measure that gives a certain, I guess, numerical value or some kind of tangible way of comparing with other countries on the national brand?
Yes, well, that has been one of the key issues in terms of measuring and apprehending soft power as such, because it's so intangible. So the question is really, how do we measure it? And we want to, of course, measure it because we want to see the effects it can have on the economy, for example.
Right.
So a number of indices have been developed by various researchers. And they're mostly based on the perception that people have of a specific country. And there are various indices that rank countries in terms of their soft power. So you have, for example, the Soft Power 30 Index, where you have the 30 most powerful countries that are ranked in terms of their soft power and the different dimensions that you can find in soft power. You also have the Monocle Index that also summarizes the soft power of a country in terms of a number. So that's one approach that you can take to measure soft power so as to gauge whether soft power has an effect on the economy or not. So recent research actually has shown that soft power has an effect, specifically on international trade.
I see.
The research shows that 1 point increase in your soft power can lead to 0.8 point increase in your trade, in your exports, which is quite significant for countries. So that's one approach. The other approach that we've developed is more qualitative, and it's about mapping the way countries use their soft power and construct their soft power to give an idea as to how to construct in the best way possible your soft power so as to increase national competitiveness, as you were hinting to.
I see. So soft as it is, it has some pretty good correlation with whatever we can measure in trade and economics as well. I see. Dr. Ainslie, how about whether these different indices kind of agree on who are the front runners in national brands? So who are the top dogs, so to speak, in the national brand?
Well, where my research is based in Southeast Asia, mostly in Malaysia and in Thailand too, a lot of these countries have very problematic historical relationships with colonial powers, for instance, from the West, and also from the East in Japan as well. So they're a little bit, shall we say, tired of hard power and tired of colonization and of conflict there. And soft power is a much better way to approach these countries. And of course, Korea does not have this problematic relationship in Southeast Asia that we see already. So Korean soft power has been extremely successful, shall we say, in Southeast Asian countries.
Back in 2010, there's a UNESCO listing of a gastronomic meal of the French, which I would wholeheartedly agree that it is a kind of a human achievement. It is listed as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Now, does that contribute greatly to revitalizing country's tourism sector, or how's it related to other sectors of the industry?
So I think when you chose the word revitalizing, it's really important to say that, because soft power is a cumulative process. So the fact that the gastronomy meal has been listed as intangible asset at the UNESCO is not as such so important in terms of its direct impact on the economy or tourism sector. But because soft power is something that takes time to build, and it's incremental and it's cumulative, this sort of event is very important for the country, because it signals to other countries in the world that it's still alive, it's still working on, we're still innovating in terms of gastronomy, and people need to come and visit France. So these kind of events or announcements are very, very important. It might look like just brief news, but in fact they have an impact because they boost the economy.
It's cumulative.
It's cumulative, yes.
I see. In a gastronomic side, Korea has also a listing, kimjang, which is making and sharing of kimchi. It has joined the UNESCO Intangible Heritage List in 2013. So it's not just the drama or the K-pop. We have seen diversified fields in terms of how Korean cultural contents have expanded its influence of food, entertainment, fashion, and even the makeup that can enhance the national brand. Now, what's your impression, Dr. Ainslie, when you think about Korea? What image comes to your mind? And now that we have some foreign guests here, maybe we can take a kind of simple poll here.
Being somebody who has studied soft power and studied the Korean wave, I'm the wrong person to ask because I'm so biased in that way. But ultimately, if you want to talk about my own personal conceptions and what I personally enjoy about the Korean wave, then I think you can't go wrong with Winter Sonata or Daejanggeum anytime. I think these are the classics as far as I'm concerned, far more than K-pop. And
the
interesting,
drama,
absolutely, of course.
Ago,
and interestingly, those have longevity too. Okay, people still talk about those even 10 years later afterwards. So they're still very much in people's consciousness. Although we'd see K-pop becoming so much more popular, variety shows, hip-hop and K-pop, and the Korean wave is able to diversify so much. That's its key to popularity, is its flexibility, I think, in many ways. But still, I think those classic genres, those classic TV shows that started everything off, they're still held up above everything as being an astoundingly good quality product, I think, that sticks in people's minds. And people will boast to me about how many DVDs they own, how many times they've watched these shows, for instance. They keep coming back to these classics.
I'm also surprised to hear that not only did the drama contents made here, as you mentioned, Daejanggeum and the Winter Sonata, those old contents are still making waves in other countries. Maybe there's maybe some basic elements that does not go out of fashion. Maybe.
Absolutely, yes. Well, they are very standardized, very old sort of traits as such, put into a context, into a Korean context there. And they did everything perfectly. They did everything very, very well as far as I'm concerned. The narratives were excellent. The setting, the filming, the stars themselves, all of that was brilliant. Yeah.
Dr. Vial, same question. What comes to your mind when you think about Korea?
Well, I think the French perspective is somewhat special with regard to K-pop and Korean soft power in general. So it will really depend on who you're talking to. And I would say that Korean dramas are quite unknown in France.
Right.
But it's not what we're really looking for, because we have a strong European drama scene. What people think, young adults or middle-aged people in France would be attracted to Korean products. So that when they think Korea, they think technology. So that's for them, an insurance for good quality products at an affordable price, which embeds the values of the bon père de famille in France, that we call, where people are really looking for good quality for affordable price.
Now, Dr. Vial touched upon some interesting fact, actually. In terms of technology, it is shown that the people all over the world know Samsung and Hyundai, but they might necessarily know that they are Korean companies. So there's a kind of a little bit of disparity as the famous companies are not necessarily known for Korean.
Right. The reason why we didn't have that connection, we didn't have that kind of clear connection between the original products and products. The Samsung, for example, when I was teaching in England about 4 or 5 years ago, one of my business faculty members said in class that LG was an American company. So it was very, predominantly misunderstood fact about Korean companies, product origins. The reason was because at that time we didn't have Hallyu in Europe. Most of the products, like Coca-Cola, is oftentimes associated with American culture. So you need culture behind the products to get the people understand the connections between the product origin and the product itself. iPhone is a great success story of Silicon Valley. So you need some kind of cultural stories behind products to get that connected to things. So now we have a Hallyu. So if I do interviews in Southeast Asia, in Europe, these days we don't have any problem of associating Samsung or LG with Korea easily because of Hallyu. Now, if they watch Korean dramas, oftentimes, these cosmetic companies like Amore Pacific, Etude House are easily connected with Korea because of dramas.
Right.
So I think Hallyu is a great incident for Korean companies to use to promote their product origins here. Which is very important now. In the past, it's obviously true that we tried to hide product origin at some point because we didn't have great image. Korea was not really positive in their mind. But nowadays, it's now time to promote highly about the product origin itself before promoting company products per se.
I guess Professor rightly pointed out that at some point in the past, I think the companies have consciously tried to kind of hide what the origin was or not consciously promote the connection between Korea and the companies. But do you think that's still a case? Do you think that having a national kind of origin or the identification, do you think that matters?
Well, I think it was a pretty good strategy, as In-gyu was saying. When you don't have yet an image and a reputation in terms of quality, even if you're producing quality products, it's probably a good bet in economic terms, to not put at the forefront the fact that you're coming from X or Y country. And you build your reputation on the quality of your product. So earlier I was saying that soft power is a cumulative process, but it's also a loop. It's a feedback loop. The soft power of Korea also comes from the fact that companies such as Samsung have built the reputation of Korea elsewhere through the quality of the product, not necessarily through putting at the forefront we are from Korea, but first building on the quality of the product. And then it's probably now time for the companies to put that on their agenda and promote Korea as a country. And you see all around the world that this is pretty much the case in very successful economic countries where companies work hand in hand with governments and foreign ministries to travel the world to sell and promote their products.
Right.
But I think the first approach was a pretty good strategy in those terms.
It might have been a company strategy, but as you pointed out, the government is getting into kind of consciously promoting this. How about, I guess it's a question better suited to Professor O, government has been also trying very hard to enhance the national brand. What do you think about the impact of its efforts, effectiveness of the efforts?
Well, mostly positive, because if I do interviews with Hallyu fans or Korea fans these days all over the world, they mention that the Korean government has been very active and in the right direction in promoting the country and the cultural content, which sometimes is not possible to observe in other countries. Like when I was interviewing American music business people, for example, in Nashville and in other parts of America, they were saying that, well, in America, we sadly don't have any government support about our music business. So there is a huge decline in music business in America because of the digital music boom. But on the contrary to that, in Korea, for example, we rightly use digital music boom to promote our Korean K-pop. And behind that, we have strong support, economic and policy support by the government. For example, setting up the broadband network back then in the 1990s, right, which helped the boost of Korean game industries, for example. Right. So that there is a coincidental lucky factor there too, but nonetheless, we have some positive aspects of government inputs in this area. But you have to also mention that you have to be sometimes critical and have to mention that there are some failures, of course, such as the government spending in K-food industry, which was a sort of disaster back then in the early 2000s. So we have to really be really realistic about all this. That is, at some point, yes, we need strong government support in terms of infrastructure, but at the time of making content, in other words, at the time we have to be so critical about this. I mean, so creative about this, especially in producing content. We need to restrict some of the government inputs because you know the government policies very well. They want to standardize everything. They want to promote, feasible things, right? So they're not very good in terms of creativeness and intangible aspects of cultural business. So when it comes to this creative side of it, I think we have to leave it to the producers themselves, individual civilians. I think they're much more.
I see.
So the government should remain as backdoor supporter of these creative people, young-minded people, creative people who are internationally well-connected, so they know how to promote their products all over the world, right? Those kind of things, we have to draw some lines between public and the private here very well. Yeah.
So government role is certainly there, but private sector, Dr. Ainslie, do you think that the private sector has a big role in terms of strategizing these enhancement of national brand?
Of course. I mean, ultimately, the brand can only be as good as the actual product as such. I mean, people buy Samsung phones because they are good phones. They don't necessarily buy them because they are Korean. So this connection can be somewhat tangible in many ways. Being based in Malaysia, I often find it strange that there are a lot of uses of the British flag, the Union Jack, on sort of bags and T-shirts, things like this, in a former British colony that's now very nationalistic and now very sort of anti-colonialist. I find that very strange, but ultimately people have those because they like it, it's a nice design, not because it's necessarily representative of the UK as such. So ultimately what we see is companies first being successful because their products are so good, like for instance the dramas that I mentioned before, and then after that we see this much stronger connection coming through to Korea itself. So definitely the private sector is hugely important here.
I see. We've discussed the ways to strengthen the national brands in order to develop Korea as the world's top soft power country. We have had a chance to visit an organization that has put a lot of efforts to promote Korean culture abroad. Let's take a look.
Korea's cultural contents have played a leading role in the global culture. Especially the Korean wave, tourism, fashion and food have been developed and combined as new cultural contents. For example, Korean singer Psy's Gangnam Style, which created a huge sensation in 2012, racked up more than 2.5 billion views on YouTube until January this year. And even a landmark has been created, which was inspired by the song. Also, a drama, My Love from the Star, had swept Chinese fans off their feet in 2014, and it had over 3.7 billion YouTube views. Tourists from China visited Incheon, a filming site of the drama, and had chimek party, which is a part of the Korean culture, to eat chicken with beer. So a combination of Korea's culture and contents have achieved a great growth and has played a leading role in the global cultural market. Visiting the scenes from the dramas or having a meeting with the Korean wave stars have been the existing strategies to attract foreign visitors. But now, the focus has been shifted to a variety of hands-on experiences. Korea's major entertainment companies like SM and JYP have promoted various programs including K-beauty and K-fashion, which foreigners can experience Korea's lifestyle. Foreign tourists can experience various contents of the Korean wave even in Jeju Island, one of the most popular tourist attractions, and they can have chances to make music with the Korean wave stars. Aside from young fans, there have been an increasing number of programs for a lot of families who have also visited Korea to experience and enjoy the Korean culture. We've put a lot of efforts to provide diversified tourist packages and make Korea as a country that is worth revisiting. Creating diversified and developed cultural contents can contribute to attracting more foreign tourists to Korea from this year, which is a starting year of the Visit Korea year until Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in 2018.
관광객들이 올 수 있는 이런 방문의 해가 되지 않을까 생각을 합니다. 저희는 우선 한국 문화가
We should try to respect and understand people from different cultures in order to promote sustainable growth of Korea's traditional culture as well as the Korean wave. We should respect different cultures if we want our culture to be respected in other countries. In that way, we can create more creative contents. Creative contents can't be created unless we show respect to other countries' cultures. That's because creative contents can be made when we combine different contents together and compete with each other. Also, I think it's significant to make creative contents by respecting, understanding, and actively communicating with each other. That's the way to promote sustainable growth of the Korean wave, as well as the Korean culture as a whole.
또 우리 한국 문화의 발전이라고 생각을 합니다.
The Korean wave, or Hallyu, let's talk about that. Professor, tell us about the little bit of history, how it all started. I mean, we know that K-pop and Korean dramas all doing well, but how did that start?
Back in the early 10s, for example, or back in the 2000s, every day on major Japanese television channels, you see Korean dramas.
I see.
Right. So that was a very revolutionary change that happened in Japan. So many people got shocked about this. Why did it all start? Because the number one single most important fact was that it was the middle-aged Japanese women who began falling in love with Korean cultural content, which means that in Korea, we have a very strong group of women writers, drama writers, unlike in Japan, where most drama writers are male people. So there was a very lucky, but also very accidental linkage between mature Japanese women and Korean women writers of dramas. And that had an accidental connection between the two. So we have this certain upsurge of Korean cultural boom in Japan. I think that's the single most important fact about this Hallyu revolution, I think.
I see. In other countries, though, Dr. Vial, you're making points during the break that Asian crisis might have contributed to the spreading of this.
Yes, so I referred to France earlier because obviously I'm French, but my area of study is Indonesia, actually. So that was part of the research project. And what you find is that Hallyu is making a really big hit in Indonesia. And that all started in 1997 after the Asian crisis, because Indonesians really like dramas, TV dramas, and they were already buying, for example, Mexican dramas. And in 97, suddenly the broadcasting industry was facing budget constraints, and the price of Japanese or European dramas were really high, and so they were really looking for, again, good quality products for an affordable price, and that was a real opportunity for Korean dramas to enter the Indonesian market, where it's now really hitting big. So that was one of the starts of K-pop and Korean dramas in Indonesia. So actually they entered Hallyu through the dramas, as Mary was saying earlier. And then you get the 2008 crisis, which is another big one that hit the entire world. And this crisis has really brought about despair and pessimism about the future, especially in the West. So K-pop is really light, optimistic, lively, and I think the young generation that is facing this huge economic crisis, which is leading to a huge social crisis, are seeking comfort and hope in this form of culture. So I think the two crises played two very important roles, but two very different roles in terms of promoting Korean pop culture.
I see. Dr. Ainslie, do you find that the certain elements or the message that the K-pop or the drama has contained kind of struck a note or resonance to the people abroad?
Certainly. I mean, within Southeast Asia, within Thailand, within Malaysia, as I said sort of previously, these products have been immensely popular. And of course, originally, most of these people were consuming Western products, in essence, okay? And this meant that this was a form of identity which was both unobtainable as such, and also one that was not entirely desirable for a former colonial country. Right. And again, there is this problematic relationship with countries like China and Japan in this region. So when we see the Korean wave and Korean products becoming popular in Southeast Asia, this offers a new model of Asian identity for consumers. This is Asianization in a sense, right? This is something that we can achieve and that we want to achieve and that is desirable for Southeast Asian consumers. This was a major part of this appeal, that it could displace this Euro-American cultural domination we saw previously and offer a new model that you can identify with and you can consume that's much closer to you as an individual.
I see. Even from my own personal experience, back in middle of 90s, I was in Los Angeles, and I saw in LA Times the article that in a valley area, the Korean dramas are very popular. Because I thought at first, wow, Korean populations are pretty big in valley area. That was my initial thought. But the article says it's not the case. It's Americans who are watching the Korean drama. And the analysis was that the family cohesiveness and the big family culture that is kind of a bygone year memory for a lot of Americans is striking a note. So it's a happen chance, or maybe it's a coincidence, but there are things that kind of overlap together, I think. Now, how about Hallyu? Can we put some numerical value to it, just like we talked about the national brands? What's the value of Hallyu, if you put it in a measurable terms?
Well, it's really difficult to measure all this because, as like I said earlier, there is a piracy factor. It's a free content. If you go to YouTube and other channels, internet channels, platforms, you can listen to K-pop for free, right? So the value of Korean pop culture content is really the fact that it is free, available freely to everybody in the world, as a matter of clicking the internet buttons. But for producers, so they have to rely on international distributors for their own music products. So like I said earlier, that in Japan, Korean pop is a really moneymaker, money-making content, because Japanese distributors distribute Korean cultural content in that country. And as you know, Japan is currently the second largest music market in the world. So Sony Music, for example, makes a lot of money because they sell Korean K-pop in Japan. Now, what do we get back from that? Well, probably I would say about 30% back. 70% goes to Sony and 30% back for Korean companies. Same thing for YouTube. YouTube plays K-pop a lot, and whenever there is one click, if somebody from Laos click on Sai's music on YouTube, probably we get about 40%. 60% goes to Google. for example. So the profit sharing structure is not very positive these days, not really on our advantage from the Korean perspective, but it's growing rapidly. The music market, the drama market is growing rapidly. Because now, for example, the 태양의 후예, which is now the most popular Korean drama ever these days, it has learned a lot in terms of distributing Korean music, Korean TV dramas. So before they even produce, they make deals with Chinese producers so that they can get initial payments from all these interested foreign importers of Korean dramas. So we are making sure that we gain profit out of this, right? But what really makes Hallyu valuable for the Korean economy is tourism. Because of this, we have now new fashion. I think it started because of Japanese Hallyu fans. Japanese Hallyu fans are always like that. If we like some foreign culture, then we have to actually go there. So when these Hallyu fans came, we did interviews of the Hallyu fans and Japanese Hallyu fans, and they said, "Why do you come to Korea?" Oh, because when we were young, we used to go to Canada, Prince Edward Island, because we loved the drama that we saw when we were young about the island. So these are we call cultural pilgrimage. Whenever you like some culture, like if you like Shakespeare, you gotta go to Shakespeare's birthplace, for example. So tourism is now is connected to actual cultural consumption these days, and that's where we do a lot of economic. We gain a lot of economic gains from Hallyu content, tourism, and possibly cosmetics and fashion goods. And also, as you know, because of their Jangam, the sales of Hyundai cars soared in Iran in the 2000s. So if you combine all this, I think at least we'll get about probably 20% of GDP coming out of cultural industries altogether, especially Hallyu industries. So Korean GDP is now world number 13. So remember, 20% is a big chunk of it. Of our GDP.
I see. Yeah. As you Dr. Ainslie mentioned, the Winter Sonata, I know that set and the places that were featured in the drama has become one of the, as you mentioned, the cultural pilgrimage area. Now, as I mentioned, this cultural content is closely connected with the tourism industry, the boom of it. But there are some concerns that, well, they come to Korea and they don't really find distinctively Korean or traditional culture, and there might have been some disappointment.
There is a danger with that, because ultimately the fantasy that is projected in Hallyu products and Hallyu dramas particularly is one that ultimately cannot be replicated in Korean society. So you do have fans that do come and are disappointed that actually Korea is not this paradise that has been constructed, that actually Korean people are normal and are the same as them in many ways. But that's not to say that they don't still enjoy their pilgrimage very much, because obviously for Southeast Asian consumers, one major draw is going to a cold country and going and experiencing snow for the first time, for instance. So ultimately, I think, yes, the tourist industry can only ride off these dramas for so long. It will have to work a little bit hard in future. But the amount of pilgrims is not slowing down. And ultimately, at the moment, we are seeing a boom in tourists from Southeast Asia. So we're seeing inter-Southeast Asian or inter-ASEAN tourism for the first time, where you have Thai people visiting Malaysia, Malaysian people visiting Burma, for instance, and Korea is very much on this circuit. So at the moment, we're seeing a boom in tourism, and a lot of those tourists are going to South Korea. Whether or not that is sustainable in the long term, I think, is another question, really.
That is a big question. Are you concerned that, pretty much the same question, but when the tourists come, but partly because Korea has been, in large part, rebuilt after a kind of devastating Korean War, so that there are not many the cultural heritage left like some other countries. Is that going to be a problem, kind of harmonizing the traditional Korean stuff and also the modern stuff portrayed in the drama and also K-pop?
Well, I think that if you really want to assert the soft power and the popular culture worldwide, really needs to build or to keep and maintain and nurture strong roots. And that has been done, and that is conveyed in a lot of Korean dramas in terms of the values that they convey, which are traditional values, and that's going to be the base of what Korean soft power is going to be about, and why people are going to come back, and that doesn't go necessarily with buildings or other tangible things. But if you come to Korea and you find in your experience of the country that those values are alive, that is, I think, really important, and that's what Korea needs to work on pretty hard to maintain. And at the same time, as Mary was saying, you need to innovate.
Right.
Because, and it's true for all the countries. So you start with a form of popular culture with boys band, girls band, Korean drama, some types of Korean dramas. But if you're successful, of course, you're going to be copied elsewhere.
Right.
So yesterday we had a presentation about K-pop in Thailand, for example, where we found some examples of Thai producers replicating Korean dramas by Thai actors and rewriting more or less the same stories, but with in the Thai settings. So if you're successful, you're going to be copied, and it's true in any industries. And so as to maintain your hedge on this, well, you need to innovate, and you need to find new ways to make it appealing and to remain the best, and to show that the country is moving on. And I think South Korea is well equipped for that, because it has a very creative industry base in terms of capabilities, human capabilities, and it's also supported by a great infrastructure in terms of the digital world. Korea is very strong in technology, and it's not just a separate industry. That's an industry that is supporting Korean pop culture and the spread of Korean pop culture.
I see.
Yeah, I have found this from talking to a lot of fans within Southeast Asia. We do now, as Virginie was saying, we see T-pop in Thailand, we see P-pop in the Philippines, etc. All of these are becoming very successful by appropriating characteristics from the Korean wave and indigenizing those to those cultures, for instance. And when I actually talk to a lot of fans, they will say that they have drifted from Hallyu to this more indigenized and localized production. However, what they say is now they've moved on to another element of Korean popular culture. So they're interested now in Korean hip-hop or Korean variety shows in this way. And as Virginie was saying again, it's this flexibility which keeps people going back to the Korean wave. And again, if we talk about tourism, Korea works very hard to keep its tourists coming from Southeast Asia. A major kind of initiative has been the increase in availability of halal food, for instance, in South Korea, which has been very important in encouraging tourists to come from Malaysia and from Indonesia, because unless they know they can have access to halal food, they won't come ultimately. So Korea works very hard to keep its image going, to be flexible and to accommodate its fans and people coming to the country.
The government's effort, I guess, to take advantage of this situation is designating 2016 to 18 as the Visit Korea year. So this could be a turning point or a milestone to make the Hallyu and Korean contents more accessible or make more innovation possible. Do you think that this is a good effort in terms of strategizing this, or is government meddling too much?
Well, as In-gyu was saying earlier, it's difficult sometimes to get direct benefits from Hallyu, because in fact the benefits are mostly spillovers. And those spillovers go onto various industries. And of course, if the companies that are producing Hallyu are private, purely private, then it's going to be difficult for them to appropriate those profits, and the sustainability then is at stake. So some government intervention is probably necessary so as to provide some kind of financial and marketing infrastructure to Hallyu. So this is probably quite a good idea. And again, the soft power and the power of popular culture needs to be boosted all the time. So with this kind of events, you send again the signal that you're there and you're doing something new, and you're proposing various alternatives in terms of popular culture, and that is very important.
I see. Well, this seems like a good time to take a look at a short video footage about the Korean wave as a tool for the country's soft power. Professor Oh, we've been seeing, we're talking about the increase in the tourists. What do you think about this increase? Is this closely related to the soft power increase, or is it related to other factors?
Yes, most predominantly I think it's Hallyu related, and most importantly, however, it is about the Hallyu fans' learning efforts, which I want to emphasize, because the reason you want to visit the country, the Mecca, we can simply use the pilgrimage example again. All these Islam people must visit at least once in their life, Mecca. It is not because they pay homage to these religious authorities, but symbols, but rather, you want to commit yourself to learning of the cultural content or religious content. So the reason they want to visit Korea these days, it's very difficult to deny the fact that Hallyu is the driving force behind this. Because I would cite one example from France. Before Hallyu, before the Gangnam Style Psy or Sonia-Shide concerts in Paris, we had 3,000 French visitors to Korea every year. After Gangnam Style, after Sonia-Shide, we have 3,000 French visitors every month.
I see.
So it's very difficult to deny this. I mean, I know some people say, no, Hallyu's impact should be small. I don't think so. It is a very important factor behind this, and it's a driving force behind that.
I see. Dr. Vial, if you can bring out your crystal ball, can you think of kind of a next hot item in Hallyu? For example, in recent Upfront, we also talked about K-book. It seems like there is an increasing interest in Korean literature as well. But can you think of any other areas that might be kind of burgeoning or gaining some momentum?
Again, it will really depend on what kind of people you're targeting. So K-books will probably, make a hit worldwide if you manage to really provide nice translations, which has been the case for K-dramas, for example. So that's probably the key to that, because the world is eager of this diversity, especially. And now when I look more at younger people, I would say that YouTubers is one area where we see a great boom in attraction and also in terms of in economic terms, in terms of marketing and in terms of publicity revenues. So if Korea can nurture a nice pool of Korean YouTubers in various areas, promoting and transmitting the Korean way of life, the Korean way of thinking and seeing the world, that would probably be one big hit.
I see. I see. We're almost out of time. I'd like to get the last comment from you, starting with Dr. Ainslie. But I'm particularly interested in your comment that K-pop coming into the Thailand and Philippines, it becomes a T-pop and the P-pop. It seems like it's a kind of a cultural contribution that Korea makes to other countries. And it's a very good thing to see that it is making a very good connection with its own culture and making it a kind of part of their own. What kind of advices, if you have, would you offer to Korea to kind of facilitate that aspect of it?
Well, certainly I'd say absolutely T-pop and P-pop are being very successful, and it shows that all these countries are taking the ball and they're running with it, all right, and they're doing new things with it. I would say that Korean entertainment is staying relevant through, again, its flexibility. So I'd say the way forward now is reality TV shows. This is what my subjects I study say. Reality TV shows, variety shows, and K-hip-hop, I think, is the next stage, because what we have are a kind of invisible and often ignored large group of male fans of Hallyu. Often Hallyu is constructed as a female product completely, and male fans are overlooked, and they like K-hip-hop. Okay, and they see this as something that they can appropriate and that they can express their own masculinity through. So I think this is the next avenue that Korea needs to move to. This is the next place to go to, and I have no doubt that it will keep going and be successful.
I see. I guess, Professor, you have the last word because of the time.
Yeah, I think Hallyu can continue to send out messages of peace, hope for developing countries, peace for the Middle Easterners, and also equality for a lot of female fans out there who can look up to Korean successful female roles they see in dramas. So these are the three important messages that we can continue to disseminate to the rest of the world. Whereas we can also show that we may have maintained peace with North Korea while developing very rapidly. So that's a message of peace and hope that I was talking about, and which we can disseminate. But also we need to universalize our content. We should not be super national about our own. We should not super proud about our culture, but we should be critical. We should be very sensible. And we should also take care of minority people, diversity people, multicultural people here in our own country as well.
On that note, I thank you, our guests, for your valuable contribution. This was an excellent discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Along with the economics and political advances, flourishing Korean contents and cultural expressions complete the all-round progress in Korea. It also is an offering for the global community to enjoy together. This sounds like a good power to strengthen. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.